Let's all get centered into our heart spaces. And we'll start the informational download section of our chakra chat. So get into a comfortable seated position.
Are you going to have Dad be the host, or are you going to be taking care?
Let me make him a host. That way I can focus on just bringing the information through. All right. So getting into a comfortable seated position. Bringing the body into stillness. Allowing the breath to deepen. Stillness of the body, bringing a stillness of the mind. From this space of stillness, we go into our hearts. We listen and we process our information from this space. When we're listening from the mind, we can get confused. If you're listening from the mind, that's okay. Just prepare to be really confused, and that's okay. Write down your questions again, please, in the chat. If you're listening from your heart space, you will likely understand everything. As I'm talking about information that on a soul level you already know. Just reminding you of this information, reintegrating it, knowledge, ancient wisdom that we've lost through the years, but it's all coming back right now. Just be grateful for that. I'll share my screen so we can all see the presentation. I'm going to quickly give a recap of what we went through last week. So those who missed it. So what we went through last week, just briefly, much more briefly than the last time, we went through understanding that around our human bodies, this physical structure that we're temporarily inhabiting, we have a magnetic field, a toroidal field that you can see here in this graphic image taken from the HeartMath Institute. You can see these symbols, these ancient symbols of the cross on the left, coming from Christianity, and the Ankh on the right, coming from ancient Egypt, Kemet, an older version of Christianity. It's the same thing. The center of this symbol, the point right at the middle, is the center space, the heart space. Right here, the center of the toroidal field. This is where we come in. And this is where we must go back to ascend into a higher plane of consciousness. Another image of the heart field along with the chakra system that is within the physical structure, as well as the toroidal field that surrounds it. And this, again, is simply one fractal of our being. Now we go into the concept of a fractal, which I will need to define, and we'll go over a little more detail. So just a definition of it, let's read it out: a curve or geometric figure, each part of which has the same statistical character as the whole. So fractals are used in modeling structures in which similar patterns recur at progressively smaller scales or larger scales, and in describing partly random or chaotic phenomena such as crystal growth, fluid turbulence, and galaxy formation. This is just the definition. Don't get scared. It's just a tool I'm going to be using. Be getting too deeply into mathematics, but just to give you an idea of what a fractal looks like, right? We have one unit. Let's say this is the physical body. We can have another unit, let's say, as we go inwards, that is also a complete fractal of who we are. Another unit as we go inwards. This is just an idea of what a fractal is, just to give you a visualization. Yes, we can also go outwards. Yes? Oh Lord, hello, hold on.
Shiv, it's not showing up on our screen. We just
Yeah,
have
that's
the
what I was going to say.
page.
It's not showing up?
No,
You can't
We
see
just
we
it?
can
have the,
only see the image of all the fractal things, but what you're saying further, we can't see.
Can you see the geometry that I'm creating on here on the screen?
No.
No? Okay. Well, all right. That's sad. Here, we'll go to the presentation. Can you see this?
Yeah, we just see the slideshow. That's all we see.
Okay, well, that's all right. We'll go with that. So, here we have, I was just trying to illustrate the definition of the fractal, but here we have an idea, again, a demonstration of what a fractal is. You can look, we have one hole. Let's look at the triangle here. Within this triangle, we can draw another triangle. Within each of those triangles, we can draw another smaller triangle. We can repeat that pattern to infinitum as we go inwards. We can also draw outside of that triangle, and we can go outwards as well. So this is just trying to illustrate the concept of a fractal so we can understand fractals of self, right? So we can look again at the concept of fractal branching. Does any of this look familiar? Right, we have a trunk. We have another trunk. This branches into two. This branches into two. This branches into two. We can keep repeating that fractal process, creating, what is this, a canopy? Looks like a tree, right? This comes out of that fractal process. We can repeat this fractal as we draw, right? As we go further, repeating this pattern, we get another pattern. What does that look like? A snowflake? We can see these fractal patterns repeated all around us in nature in variable ways. It doesn't always appear quite as symmetrical as this, right? Sometimes there are slightly different fractal patterns. That's why we have these different patterns that appear around us. But this is how nature grows. In these fractal patterns, these repeating patterns, according to the principles of the golden ratio, often, or at least nearing and approximating this golden ratio of 1.618, it keeps going, but we can see here, we have a small square, right? The area of that square multiplied by 1.61a, multiplied by 1.61a, multiplied by phi, multiplied by phi, multiplied by phi, multiplied by phi, multiplied by phi. As we connect, right, we get this spiral shape. It's just a typical way of explaining how these patterns appear. We can see them all around us, not just in nature, but even in architecture, even in art. Right, as we see that shape in the typical nautilus shell here, in the sunflower, in the human face, in the Pyramid of Giza, right? In, what is this called? The temple, ancient Greek temple, I forget the name of it. We have the Mona Lisa.
Acropolis.
Sure, necropolis. Thank you. I forget the exact name of it. Yeah, but and then we have the Sacrament, Last Supper, Dali's painting. We have the ear. Right, we have all these images that are showing us how these fractal patterns, as well as the phi ratio, appears around us in nature. And we also have this toroidal field that we went over in that last week, where we can look at this fractal pattern and see the toroidal field around the body, around the planet. And these we can think of as fractals of self. So we have Shiv Mund Core, right? This physical structure that everybody calls Shiv Mund Core. You see in front of you? Hi, what's up? And the toroidal field around this physical structure that's centered around the heart. And we can zoom outwards to greater or larger fractals of self. And we can zoom inward to smaller fractals of self. Right, when we zoom outward, we can see, right, like the toroidal field of the planet, the toroidal field of the solar system, of the galaxy, of the supercluster, which is a collection of galaxies. And at the center of each of these toroidal field is a heart. So the physical body has a heart, the planet has a heart. It's the core of the planet. The solar system has a heart, the core of the sun. The galaxy has a heart. There's a big black hole at the center of the galaxy. That's the heart of the galaxy. The supercluster also has a heart around which many galaxies rotate. And there's a gigantic black hole at the center of that supercluster. And we can keep zooming out. Who knows how far? I don't know. We can zoom inwards as well. Around each cellular structure is also a toroidal field, centered around the nucleus of the atom, of the cell, right? Each cell has a nucleus, right? We can zoom in further to the atom. And again, each atom has a nucleus as well. We can zoom in to the atom and see the proton, and each proton also has a nucleus. Who knows how deeply inwards we can zoom? But what we do know is that the universe is mostly empty space. And it's this space that connects everything. And as we release our identity and attachment to this physical structure that we call Shiv Mund Core, or whatever you may call your physical structure, right, we become more integrated with these various fractals of ourself. And we learn to understand this oneness and understand this creation story that is in every single spiritual tradition, that is meant to help us to understand this oneness and understand this fractal nature of the universe, to help us to grow and further expand our consciousness. And this brings us to the idea of sacred geometry, which has existed in every tradition, all around the planet. You have, I'm just going to briefly go to the next slide, right, so you can see the sacred flower of life, which is this symbol here. Where is the sacred? Anyway, this is the sacred flower of life, and it has existed in every single ancient tradition for a reason. You can see the flower of life in Abydos in Egypt, in Austria, in India, and Bulgaria. King Herod's temple is it's near Jerusalem from the Roman Empire, right? Bulgaria, Scotland, Buddhist temples, in the Freemasonry, in Turkey, in China, right? In China, we have this. That's actually really cool. It's like a three-dimensional flower of life symbol. And this is a universal symbol that we must understand in order to understand the universe and understand this oneness principle and the creation story, essentially. So this brings us to sacred geometry and the creation myth. There's a lot of information here. I'm going to take a quick look at the chat to see how many questions we have. Not too many. Okay. In fact, none. All right, let's get to it. All right. So every spiritual tradition around the world has a creation myth, a creation story that has to do with understanding the creation of the universe, the creation of new universes. Every birth of a new life is the creation of a new universe. We have this idea, the 7 days of creation. We have the 7 chakras. We have the 7 days of the week. Each day of the week, a different planet is emphasized, 7 planets. And there's a reason for this number 7. And that has to do with this sacred geometry, which is a deep understanding of how this creation principle works. We start off with the circle. The circle represents oneness, infinite possibility. This is before the creation. This is what exists first. And it's the splitting of what in the Bible they call the word, which is the splitting of this oneness into the principle of 2, which creates what is called the Vesica Pisces. And that's this symbol here. Right? The splitting of oneness into duality. the creation of duality, the masculine and the feminine principle. One of the circles here is the masculine principle, and one of these is the feminine principle. And that overlap in the middle, that is the child. So I'm speaking in symbols. I'm speaking in the language of love. Every word that I'm saying has a lot more meaning in it than just the English. But I understand, listen with your heart. You'll get more out of these words than just listening with your mind. When we repeat that fractal pattern of from the two comes the three, the Holy Trinity. We have this symbol here, right? Understanding of the Holy Trinity allows for this understanding of unity, which is the center point. Every religion or spiritual tradition on this planet has the oneness principle, has the duality, and has this principle of triality or unity consciousness. This principle of the three energies, whether that be mother, father, child, whether that be positive, negative, neutral, as in physics, whether that be, in Christianity, we have the Father and the Holy Spirit and the Mother, or Father, what is it? Father, the Mother, and the Holy Spirit, yeah? Right?
Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Sorry?
Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, yes, sorry. So we have the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. The Father being the masculine principle, right? The Holy Spirit being the feminine principle, and the Son, of course, being what is produced. Even in healing modalities like Ayurveda, we have the three energies. In traditional Chinese medicine, we have those three energies. In alchemy, we have the three principles. We have the soul, the spirit, and the body. Then we have from three comes four. We have the four elements from which the universe is made of. Earth, water, fire, and air. From those four elements comes the fifth element, the creation of ether, the space. We have six representing balance. And then we have seven representing wholeness, completion. This completion we call the seed of life. And as you can see, geometrically, when we repeat this pattern one more time around, and then again, another time around. So we're adding from 7 circles, we're adding 6 more circles around, and then we're adding another 6 circles around, creating 19 circles. And that creates what we call here the flower of life, you see. Traditionally, the flower of life symbol here has this double circle around it. You can see there. There's a big double circle around it. It represents a barrier that in the ancient mystery schools, when this information was taught, it was hidden knowledge. It was only taught to those who could responsibly use this knowledge. Now all the information is just coming out for everyone. I think that's great, because I believe that now everyone is ready for this knowledge, to integrate it. We don't need to keep this knowledge only for the privileged. We can help everyone to learn this knowledge. You don't need to join some mystery school, sacrifice your freedom to have access to this knowledge. Don't need to be a Freemason. But that's traditionally what this double circle represented was, well, the idea that that's it. While actually, there's more. You can see actually, within the flower of life, the symbol of the tree of life, coming from ancient Jewish mysticism, the Kabbalah, representing the chakras. We can get more into that later, of course. We'll go into more detail in the chakras. But when you take away this double layer and you go beyond that veil, and you actually add to the flower of life another round of circles, and then another, you get this shape here. Highlighted here are these circles and this shape, which is emboldened here, called the fruit of life, which comes from understanding the tree of life. And from that fruit of life, we get this symbol of the completion of where we're going. Understanding our true multidimensionality. This symbol is called Metatron's cube. And it has a lot of information in it. Let's see what time it is. So I think we may, depending on, if there are any questions, we're gonna pause here for now, and we'll get to Metatron's cube and the 5 elements, and we'll probably talk more about the basics of these sacred geometrical principles and the creation story next time. But for now, are there any questions?
There is a question from Naveen and from Karen Dawn.
Okay, so if you could please read the questions one at a time because it's hard for me to check them while I'm
Okay.
sharing this.
Naveen says, is creation produced by a fractal process?
Yes. So what you can see from this creation, right, you can, if you look at embryology, right, you have the egg. The way that the egg divides is exactly in this fashion. So you have the egg and you have the sperm, and it divides. That sperm is what causes the sperm, the masculine energy, getting into that egg of the feminine energy of infinite possibility, is what causes the first division and creates that vesica Pisces as that egg divides in two. That egg continues to divide and creates what is called the morula, which is that collection of cells which actually carry all of the genetic DNA. Every single cell has the ability to produce a complete human being. And that morula is the physical seed of life.
Okay.
Did that answer your question? It's sort of just an example of how the sacred geometry carries over into the physical.
Claire and Dawn, they say, is it fail to say fail? To
Fair.
s- fair, I guess. Is it fair to say that each embodiment is a fractal of the self?
Should have been
Just why don't you say it?
Yeah, please.
typos. Is it fair to say that each embodiment is a fractal of the self, the Atman, that each contains the whole within it?
Yes, that is most certainly fair to say that, yes. Yes. So each fractal of self does in fact contain the whole. So if you look at the work, the mathematical work of a man named Nassim Haramein. He's a theoretical physicist, and he actually showed that the entire mass of the universe is contained within every single proton. That means the knowledge of the entire universe and the memory of the entire universe is contained in every single proton in the entire universe. How that's possible? Mind-boggling, right? Can't really think about it to understand it. But he has mathematically shown this to be true. That in every single proton is a black hole. At the center of every single proton is a black hole. Black holes are everywhere. And within each black hole is contained the memory and the knowledge of the entire universe, as well as the mass of the entire universe. So yes, the one is in the all and the all is in the one. Yes. As above, so below.
Wait, Shiv, did he say that the mass is contained in every proton? It's probably
Yeah.
the information is contained in the proton, maybe not the mass.
Both actually, yeah. The mass as well as the information, yeah. He actually mathematically showed that. I know it sounds weird, right? But yeah. It's the information, but yeah, the information is and the mass are actually the same thing.
Well, we know the mass of a proton, yeah, that reference that you said, maybe I'll look that up.
Yeah, look up Nassim Haramein. Look up Nassim Haramein. He'll be able to explain it better than I. Yeah, he's the one who has actually proven this mathematically. Yeah.
Forrest, do you have any questions?
No, I don't, but thank you.
Joanne?
No question.
So is that it? Are there no other questions?
Malika, do you have any questions?
If there are no other questions, I can continue.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What does electron has? You know, you're saying proton, but there is electron also. So what does electron contain?
The electron, honestly, I can't answer that question. I don't know. The electron is, I mean, sort of everywhere at the same time. It's not like really there. It's just sort of like a bit, right? It's a one bit of knowledge. And it's sort of everywhere at the same time. It's just like knowledge moving around. But I can't really, I don't know, I guess, is the answer. I don't know. Wish I could answer everything.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Shiv Naveen is asking, it is Nassim Haramein, right?
Yeah, yeah. Nassim.
Yeah, I found him. I just posted
okay.
his name here. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Nassim Haramein, yeah. He's a very, very, very smart man. All right. If there are no other questions, I can continue. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. So this brings us to Metatron's cube now. We can get back to some more details on creation because I know there's a lot that I missed and just kind of jumped through. But we can get to more details on that next time. So I'll start talking about Metatron's cube now. From here, from Metatron's cube, excuse me, we can see the creation of the 5 elements, the 5 platonic solids. We have Metatron's cube, the 13 circles of Metatron's cube, which represent the feminine principle, as well as the 13 angels, you can say, of the Bible or of Christianity, the 13 principles of the universe that are holding the frequency, stabilizing the frequency of the universe. If you take the center of each circle and connect it with a straight line, those straight lines represent the masculine principle. There are 78 total lines when you connect these 13 circles. Those 78 lines, a sacred number for a reason. There's 78 cards in the tarot. There's 78 chakras in a fully activated 11-dimensional being. 78, not just 7. So a fully activated being will have 78 chakras before they move on and activate more. But now, within that structure, you can see, if you look at specific lines, the creation of the 5 elements that make up the entire universe. We have the tetrahedron. We have the cube. We have the octahedron, the icosahedron, and the dodecahedron, representing the elements of fire, earth, water, air, and ether. Ether meaning space. Each is correlated with a chakra of the first 5 chakras. Right? You have the root chakra, which is correlated with the element of earth. You have the sacral chakra correlated with the element of water. You have the 3rd chakra correlated with the element of fire, the 4th with the element of air, and the 5th with the element of ether or space. As you move up further, there are more elements. We don't quite have Platonic solids or names for them, or ways to draw them, really. But here, if you look, each of these elements is represented twice. One for the masculine principle, one for the feminine. One rotates clockwise, one rotates counterclockwise in the toroidal field. We have the dodecahedron. Tetrahedron. 1 and 2, right? 1, this is coming out towards you, and 2, right? It's not just a 2-dimensional shape. This is called the Merkaba, traditionally. The light body is one way to visualize the light body and activate it. And in the Jewish mysticism, we have this represented as the Star of David. That's the meaning of the Star of David, is this shape of the double tetrahedral shape. This pyramid here, which represents the upward facing one, which represents the feminine principle, the physicality, the social structure. We also have the masculine principle, this downward facing tetrahedral pyramid shape, which represents the spirituality, the individuality. When these two come into balance and are both rotating, in a healthy way, rather than just being stuck, then we have a balance between the physical and the spiritual. We have a balance between the social and the individual. And we have a fully activated light body. We also can see this hexahedron cube shape. We have one in here, and we also have, you see this one on the inside? So there's one big one on the outside, and we have this one on the inside as well. See that? This one on the outside and one on the inside, this is, it's called a hypercube. It's a four-dimensional image. And it represents a mastery of time. Space and time. We have the octahedron shape here. And again, we have two of these. So there's one on the outside here. And there's also one on the inside. It's hard to see. We have the icosahedron and the dodecahedron. Again, both of these, we have two. We'll get more into the 5 elements and more into understanding Metatron's cube in the future. But I want to talk a little bit about the chakras before we get more into those specifics. So, brief introduction to the chakras, finally. This number 7, which comes from this Metatron's cube, comes from the creation. And this is the initial 7 chakras of the 3rd dimension. Again, there are dimensions of our beingness all the way from the 1st dimension all the way through the 11th dimension of our beingness. So we have more than 78 chakras. But this is the first initial 7 that must be activated before the chakra system gets more complex. And we'll go into understanding cymatics in order to understand how the complexity of the chakra system changes over time as the frequency of the soul and the body increases. So the chakra system complexity also increases. But we start with this initial 7 chakras. And the way that they're developed as we're born is as follows. So first of all, the chakra means wheel in English. And understanding the chakra system is a way of understanding how the physical and the subtle bodies connect and understanding the universal energies of our being. So it's important to understand that our physical body has a chakra system, the planet has a chakra system, each atom has its own chakra system, right? The solar system has a chakra system, the galaxy has a chakra system, and they are all interwoven into one another. And yes, it's important to be able to visualize this in order to be able to understand the various fractals of who we are, to see that in the mind. The root chakra activates in the womb, upon birth. Within the first 6 to 18 months, the sacral chakra is activated. Up until you're about 7 years old, you're functioning from the first 4 chakras, and your top 3 chakras are not really so active at all because they're not physically even formed yet. So you don't really have access to them. But once we reach the year of 18, the first 7 chakras are possibly activated, depending on your circumstances, your karma, your environment, how you've developed. what sort of karma you've inherited and come in with. So unfortunately, in this world, many of us, when we're born, we are picking up so much trauma from our environment that many of the chakras, as we are developing, shut down. And this creates developmental issues as well as health issues in the body. So we'll get into talking about some of that, some of those health issues and developmental issues that can come next time. But traditionally, we have these ceremonies like the thread ceremony and the coming of age ceremonies of various traditions and spiritual traditions that happen when we reach the puberty age, which is when the third eye chakra is supposed to be activating. And the crown chakra activates when we're about 18. And this is, again, when we're supposed to be becoming an adult. And this is how we become an adult and to become wiser. Sahasrara, the crown chakra, where our belief systems are stored. The belief systems are supposed to be shifting at this age. And when the Sahasrara fully unwinds, the Earth Star activates and the Kundalini energy is further activated in the Muladhara. And as that Kundalini activates further, it activates all of the chakras even more and unwinds the Sahasrara even more and shoots upwards, activating even more of the chakras that are above the crown. Again, we have 78 or more chakras that all are eventually activated by this Kundalini energy. Which exists at the root of the spine. The Kundalini meaning just life force energy, which is stored at the root. We have access to this energy by accessing the heart of the planet, our mother. And our mother, when we're ready, our spiritual mother, our soul mother, the mother of our soul, activates this energy for us when we're ready, spiritually. And this is the Earth Star, which is actually, it's not showing in this picture, but I guess like underneath here, if you can see my mouse, it exists about a foot or two beneath the root, beneath the soles of the feet, actually. So wherever you are sitting, about 1 to 2 feet under you, that's where the Earth Star chakra is. And that's where, what connects you to the heart of the planet, which is one fractal above you. And when we learn to identify with this, then we can connect to our solar aspect and activate above the crown. And again, this happens usually when we are around our Saturn return, about when we're 27, 28 years old. And I think with that, we can pause and see if there are any questions, and we'll get to more of this information next week. Are there any questions?
Yes, there are. Claire and Dawn have a question. Claire, can you ask?
Well, this is Dawn's question, so I'll let him ask.
Okay. Aren't the chakras subtle structures rather than actual physical structures?
So wait, say the question again, sorry.
Aren't the chakras subtle structures and not actual physical structures?
What about the subtle structures?
Aren't they? I mean, I'm saying if you dissected a person, you wouldn't find a chakra there and say, aha, here's the chakra. It's a more...
Oh. I see.
Right.
So, well, you have, ideally speaking, they are one. So when we have disease, that is when the physical and the subtle bodies are out of alignment. But when the body is healthy, the physical and the subtle bodies are actually in alignment. So,
in other words, we won't be able to dissect it and get that chakra out. That's what you're trying to say, right?
Do a
yeah,
chakra.
you can't actually remove, you can remove the physical connection to the chakras, but you can't remove the soul aspect of it. Yeah, you can't remove the subtle aspect of it, but you can lose your physical resonant connection to the chakra. So there is a physical aspect to it, yes. But the physical and the emotional, the mental, the causal, which is the soul level, they are all connected. And ideally speaking, when the causal is in alignment with the rest, the causal is telling the physical DNA what to do. But when the causal and the physical structures are not in alignment, the physical DNA can kind of go off and randomly do its own thing. And that's when you get mutations or basically expressions of the DNA that are really not supposed to be there. And you get issues like disease that can, depending on how out of alignment the subtle and causal bodies are with the physical structure, can create different levels of disease. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. I'm not sure if there's answer to it or not. Like kids are born with dyslexia, or kids are born with autism.
Yeah.
I mean, it's become such a big problem now with people with autism and dyslexia. Is it something to do with these chakras? And I wonder if those kids are given these kind of activation of these chakras, whether we could help those kids. I don't
Well,
know.
often these children who have autism, they actually have very active chakras. A lot of the chakras are actually more active than their parents can handle.
I
So
know.
their realities are quite different. And yeah, physically there can be issues because environmentally there can be environmental trauma as well as physical trauma that can be affecting the alignment of the causal and subtle bodies with the physical structure that can again create these issues. So again, when you have those bodies in alignment, you call it a genius. And when you have those bodies out of alignment, but the chakras are super active, you call that autism, right?
Yeah.
So sorry.
What does activation of chakra mean?
Activation of the chakra just means that there's more energy going through it.
No,
And
where
is-
is energy going? Where?
Both directions. So you have energy coming from the masculine towards the feminine through the body, and you also have energy coming from the feminine towards the masculine through the body. And you also have the third energy, which again, right, we have that principle of triality, right? So you have the masculine principle, which is attracted to the feminine principle and goes through the body. You have the feminine principle, which is attracted to the masculine principle, and it goes through the body. You have that third principle, which is the creation of the merger between the two, right? We have all three of these principles. That third principle draws both of those energies through to a higher degree. I mean, that's just what we call activation. That third principle we could call Kundalini.
So can we suppress in those kids? My mind is always thinking about, I have kids, you know, I have seen patients with autism and I don't have no idea what to do with them. And usually they are put on certain kinds of medications so that they can sort of numb them, you know, and I don't know. I wish there was something like a yoga thing which would help them. You know, how do you can activate chakra, but how do you deactivate the chakra?
Well, when
Seems-
you have, for example, like a Kundalini activation or you have a chakra activation, you can't unsee what you see. So you
but
can't
those
really,
drugs
don't
definitely
want to turn it
suppresses.
off. You don't want to turn it off. The only way you turn it off is by increasing the resistance in that chakra, and that will create a problem.
Yes.
So whenever you're increasing the resistance anywhere, you are sort of shutting that off. But when you're increasing the resistance somewhere, you're not actually turning off the energy. So all you're doing is you're creating not just more resistance, but since there is already more energy going through that creates friction. And that friction is creating the disease. It's creating the inflammation in the body physically, and it creates problems over the long term. Genetic problems, karmic problems, lots of different issues.
How about dyslexia? Like I've seen people who are dyslexics, but they're very bright.
Dyslexia often has to do with an imbalance between the hemispheres or
Yes.
between the sides of the body. So
Yes.
what we can do for dyslexia is balance, focus on bringing balance to the sides of the body through various physical, emotional, spiritual practices, as mental practices. And that can help to bring balance to the sides of the body, as well as detoxifying wherever the main resistances may be, such that that area can actually shift. So when you're decreasing the resistance in that area, it makes that area more pliable. Once that area is pliable, then you can create balance in it. Makes sense?
It's tough though.
Yeah,
It's a very tough problem.
takes a constancy, takes practice. Yeah, a complete lifestyle change. Yeah.
Hmm.
Some of these things take a complete lifestyle change, and especially for the children who have these issues, the parents really need to be involved. They need
Of course.
to be completely involved, not just with the child, but with their own self. They need to be able to demonstrate. They need to be able to show the child with their own practices, with their own mental thoughts. They need to be able to have their own, they need to have their own practices. They need to work on themselves to be able to show the child how to be. Otherwise, if they're just too focused on the child and they're busy going crazy themselves, like, doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know, and then they need to work on cleaning up the environment. They need to work on changing the environment, changing what they're eating. It could be a lot of different things. Changing how they're thinking, changing what they're believing, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Shiva, I had a question. Hi.
Hi.
So you said that the root chakra is activated in the womb. And so that's why the mother who's pregnant, it's important for her to have a good physical state of mind, a physical and emotional state of mind.
Yeah.
Not if she's eating unhealthy and not exercising and not sleeping, or she's under tremendous stress, are you saying that will be transferred into the child?
Most certainly.
Okay, so that's what you meant by activated in the womb. So it's kind of directly linked to the mom, the mother, how much her physical body and emotional state is.
Most certainly. Yes. Because whatever the mother is experiencing, the child will experience.
How about the father?
The father can help. The father can, unfortunately, the father is not the one creating the baby.
No, but the father is creating trouble by
If the father is
arguing.
creating trouble, he needs to work on himself. Yeah.
It's the father's sperm that's creating the baby, so that's important, right? Without him, it's not possible, right?
Yeah. He's got a quick job, though.
fathers are responsible too.
He can help with decreasing the stress on the mother. You know, he can take care of the mother. You know, and provide support, provide comfort, provide what the mother needs to help the child to grow up in an easy, not easy, but like a more comfortable, not stressful environment, right? Like a more relaxed environment. Because if the dad can help the mom to be comfortable and relaxed,
Yeah.
Happy.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, if the dad is contributing to stress, that's not good either. Work on it.
So why we talk about you're saying 72 chakras. So I know we talk about the 7 main.
78, but yeah.
78, I'm sorry. Okay.
No worries.
So where are those? Like, are they directly connected to the 7 that we talk about, or no? That's a deeper theory? Just trying to kind of visualize or understand.
So the first 7 are the third dimensional chakras. Once you have that, it's easy to think of it in terms of music, actually. If you think of each octave of the musical scale as one fractal of who you are, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Octave oct means 8, right? Octave, you have 8. But that first and the 8th are the same note. They're C, right? So you have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, which is 7. Those are the 7 chakras. Then you have C, which is the beginning of the next octave, right? So then that's the third dimension. Once you go to the next octave, you're in the 4th dimension. The next octave, you're in the 5th dimension. Each octave of who you are will have 7 chakras, major chakras. Again, if you look at minor chakras, we're including way more small little chakras here and there all over the place. So you can, if you're counting minor chakras, you have 108 chakras within your physical structure, not just 7 that you have access to, and 4 that you don't, that not really, you don't have physical access to, but you have 108 within your body, including the minor chakras that you have physical access to, that you can affect with your physical yoga practice. But so every single octave of who you are in each dimension has 7 major chakras. Does that make sense? It's like Roy G. Biv, ROYGBIV, the rainbow.
The 7 colors, yes.
The 7 colors, right? And you can also think of it in terms of music. C, D, E, A, B. I mean, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Yeah. So you can think of it in many of these different ways, but that first octave is the physical. And that's what we think of as Shiv Mudkar. This is this physical body. And that's what we can see. That's the Roy G. Biv. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think even when you are saying Ram, BM, Bam, if you think of Saregama Padanisa or CD,
Yes.
it feels good because you know where to go.
Yes. Yes. That's another way is yes. Sare, Gama, Pada, Nisa. Yeah. That's another way of thinking of the octave. Yes. Are there any other questions?
Yes, I have got a question.
Yeah.
You have a representation of most of the religious traditions, Christianity, Egyptian, and is there a similar one in the Hinduism also?
Well, traditionally in Hinduism, you know, you have the Holy Trinity in Hinduism as well. So you have the masculine and the feminine. So traditionally you have Shiva and you have Shakti, right? Where they meet in the middle is the heart. So you have Shiva, you have Shakti, you have the Yoni, you have the Lingam. And the Yoni and the Lingam together is what represents that creation. The Yoni meaning the vagina and the Lingam meaning the penis is literally the representation of creation in Hinduism. And that represents the Shiva and the Shakti energy, which again, when they come together, creates the child. So in Hinduism, you have that as well. I don't know if there's really a symbol in Hinduism for that. There might be, maybe, but I don't know personally.
So what does the Om represent?
The home?
Om.
Om. Yeah, Om represents the initial sound. So you have that initial circle, right, which is the feminine principle. And then you have that Om. That Om is the sound of creation, the word of God that creates that separation of one into two. Does that make sense?
It makes from non-dual to dual.
Yes, from yes, exactly. Yes.
Mm.
Om is what creates duality. It's what initiated creation.
So is it synonymous with Big Bang? Big Bang?
Yes. Om is the initiator of the Big Bang. The sound that created the universe.
Okay, I'm coming to the initial question that was asked to you, whether when you dissect the body, can you find this chakra anywhere? Or is it a conceptual model?
So that depends on how you think of the chakras. Again, you have the causal body, which is your soul body, which is where everything comes from and where it ends up. And it is really what we are, is that causal body. And this physical structure is more like a image that manifests through time and builds as sort of like a mirror image of what that causal body is. But it's just made up of the food that we eat. So it's not really what we are. And the chakra system is, I guess you can think of it as what connects that physical to the causal. And it exists, not really like in the physical structure, though you can affect it using the physical structure because they're connected. So yeah, you can't really like dissect the dissect the physical body and like pull out your third eye or like pull out your, but at the same time, you do have a reflection of the third eye in the physical structure at the pineal gland, right? And if the third eye is online, the pineal gland will be healthy. If the third eye is blocked, often people will have a calcification, like bony structure around their third eye. And that's because there's no circulation of blood there. And it's not even being used. There's no imagination anymore. There's no dream happening. There's no dream remembrance. There's no creativity, or lack of creativity at least. And the ability to focus is less, and there's more of like a robotic tendency. Yes. So the pineal gland is a reflection of that causal and emotional third eye.
Yeah.
But you can say that, you know, the pineal gland is the physical aspect of the third eye.
Or maybe the neck chakra, for example, the thyroid, probably,
Yeah.
you know, there. And the heart chakra, of course, we all know the heart issues that people get. Now, lower down, probably the pancreas causing diabetes, if you have not done enough with that issue, or liver issues, you know, with sacral chakras, or Manipura chakra, you call it, right? And the gonads.
Yeah, I mean, like the Manipura, you know, the Manipura is like the diaphragm. And
Yes.
the, right?
Yes.
So, and it's the solar plexus.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And it is also connected, you know, it connects everything. So it's also connected to the vasovagal nerve, which is the sushumna.
Yes.
The physical aspect of the sushumna, which is that central channel, is that vasovagal nerve.
Yes.
In the state of samadhi,
Vagus nerve, sorry. Sorry, what did you say?
what happens to the causal body in the state of samadhi?
Oh, in the state of samadhi, you are becoming that causal body. You are becoming one with it and recognizing that you've released the identification with the physical body and are expanding into becoming one with that causal body, which is one with everything. So in that state of samadhi, you are experiencing oneness with everything.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Fun. Very good.
All right. So I think for now, we'll end here. And for those that are interested in learning about this fasting program that's going to be starting in September, you can feel free to stay and we'll just talk briefly about that. And for those who are not staying and not interested in that, thank you so much for coming. Namaste. I hope you enjoyed.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thanks, Shiv.
Thank you, Shiv. Thank you.
Thank you, Shiv.
Bye. Thanks.
Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Good day.